everyone, I'm Luke Hector and you're watching The Broken Meeple. This is a YouTube channel about board games where I give reviews, top 10s and my honest opinions, regardless of the consequences.
Get on with it.
So on today's episode, I'm taking a look at Arborea from Alley Cat Games, designed by Danny Garcia. This is a preview copy of the game that is coming to Kickstarter on the 16th of January 2023, I believe, give or take a day. So pretty much by the time you watch this, it won't be long before you can decide whether you want to back it or not. Now, this isn't a full review as normal, this is a preview, so I'm going to tell you a bit about how the game works, my general feelings on it, and what I think the publisher needs to do leading up to its finalization. But this definitely gives a certain vibe, doesn't it? Heavy Euro gamers will remember a certain game from 2021, I believe, called Batoku from Devere Games, which, whether or not the publisher was intending this to happen, this is going to get compared to that one left, right and center because it's got that same kind of fantastical, weird as hell type artwork that is all about like spirits and creatures and ecosystems. That, I mean, it's pretty much screaming out like a type of Studio Ghibli Japanesey anime style like artwork, and so they're gonna get compared. That's just gonna happen. So Arborea is a worker placement game with a slight timing aspect. There are 4 pilgrimage tracks on the board, and I'm gonna try and not say the word track too often, but we'll see. And what happens is basically there are 2 different areas with bonuses that you get on each side of the track. So 4 tracks, effectively 8 locations. But what happens is you place your workers, of which you've got 3 different types. One is slightly more powerful than others. And what happens is your worker goes on the track, and as time goes forth, these tracks will slide along before eventually refreshing, bringing the cardboard tiles back. But effectively it's moving along, and you decide when you're going to take your worker off it in order to trigger all the bonuses on the respective trail that it's next to. People might remember a certain game called Zulk in the Mayan Calendar from quite a while ago, which was a Euro game where you had all these different wheels, these cog wheels, and when you put the worker on the wheel, the longer you left it on the wheel, the more powerful the action was when you took the worker off it. Same premise here. If you take the worker off straight away, for example, you'll get, maybe 1-2 bonuses if you're lucky, and they won't be that great. But if you're willing to spend the time to just let it, let it there, let it stew for a little bit, let it get to the very end, then when you remove the worker off at that point, the actions are much more numerous or more powerful. What you're trying to do is gain biomes, of which you've got 6 different biomes on a resource track effectively, and the aim of the game is primarily to complete these ecosystem cards. So you'll start off with 1, but you can collect quite a few more from 4 different colors effectively, but they each have requirements on the bottom for which of the 6 different biome resources you need. Going over these trails on these pilgrimage tracks will get you these respective biomes, and effectively, it's a shared pool of resources. So as you increase the amount of biomes available to everybody, you will gain points for doing so. But you need to spend from this in order to actually complete the cards. When you complete the card, you get the rewards, but then you flip it over, and on the other side is a puzzle kind of reminiscent of another game called Honshu or Hokkaido and similar veins. This has definitely got some original aspects, but for a much part, it seems to be kind of cherry picking a few key things from games that don't get talked about much, it must be said. But what you do with these ecosystem cards is you effectively build a little spatial puzzle using pretty much the exact same placement rules as in those other games. So you must touch at least 1 edge or cover at least 1 square. You can't place the card underneath one you've already placed. And you basically just create your own little pattern building thing down here. Why are you doing this? Because you want to attract these things. Hello, big chunky wooden creatures. Yes, you've got 6 different creatures. Again, think fantastical, weird stuff. I mean, this one's called a spider ant. I'm sure it's all cutesy normally, but I feel like that would be the stuff of my nightmares. But then you've got like an owl fox thing. You've got what looks like an elephant moose thing. It's hard to tell. They've got some weird names, but basically fantastical creatures. And these go on your ecosystems in the middle of the squares on the cards, and you score points at the end of the game based on what colors and what various things surround what, or what you can see on the horizontal and vertical paths. As I mentioned, this is definitely a bit more thinky than a lot of the games that Alley Cat have put out. This is no exception. Compared to Bitoku though, Bitoku is a bit more heavy in Brainburny, but this is no light fare. I mean, you've got to think about, right, how many workers can I juggle here? Because some you've got to train up and some you have available. But then you've got 4 pilgrimage tracks that are moving at different rates. Some have the season tile symbols on, some don't. It's random at the start of the game. You've then got, right, well, which workers are going on which tracks? Which of the 8 different locations do I need to go to? Which biomes do I need for these cards in front of me? Right, well, what creatures are available at the top of the board? You won't be able to see it in the camera view, but you effectively attract the creatures to that board first, which again gets you bonuses, but then you have to get the creature from there onto your, onto your board, either in captivity or invited, and then once you've got the ecosystem set up, you then have to put the creature on your tiles in order to put that in the best scoring position. Wow, yeah. There's a lot to juggle. There's a lot to get your head around. And so one of the aspects I have found is that this can be a little AP inducing. All in all, it's a very nice looking production, even for a pre-Kickstarter copy. What concerns me though are mainly the size aspect. Does anybody remember Eternal Palace? Eternal Palace was another game that Alley Cat did, and one of the biggest issues that one had, it's a decent game, but a big issue it had was that the board was too small. It was difficult for people sat afar to be able to see what was going on in it, and it meant that it condensed the graphic design down. Now the graphic design on here from an iconography perspective is actually relatively well done. Most of the symbology is easy to tell apart, and providing you use the icon reference, you should be able to tell what action does what. There's just a lot of iconography all over the place. But this board is not the smallest, sorry, not the biggest board ever. I mean, this is where my hand goes. It's not that far to the top of the board in here, and it's not particularly wide. So yes, it'll fit on a smaller table, but honestly, I think the board needs to be bigger. These tiles, for example, they don't sit very well on these tiny little spaces down there. I mean, this is much bigger than the square it's got to go on, and we're told by Alley Cat Games that these are going to be made smaller so that they'll fit. No! Make the board bigger so that they can fit these. Don't make everything small, because it's difficult for a lot of people to see what's going on. And the board is busy. Very busy. These different trails, they go off in different directions. There's icons, there's all the background colors, and there's workers that are obviously, they're tall enough so that they're going to be, blocking eyesight in some respect to some of the trails. Like, you can miss certain bonuses on these trails if I'm looking from a distance and your worker is covering up the start of the trail. It can be a pain. Another little thing with the components I was a little bit fiddly with is these biome trackers down here. They're split into 2 halves, and you effectively move the top part of the biome thing up as many spaces as there are a number of biomes you've collected. And then at the end of your turn, if you haven't spent them, you move the bottom half all the way up in order to meet it, so you know how many points you're getting. Problem is, there's 6 different biomes here, all split into half, and they're very tiny pieces, so moving this got a very fiddly. The bonuses that you trigger are lots of little bonuses that you get for going down the trails, and the trails are a little bit on the busy side, I have to say, but it is rewarding to sort of go, right, well, I could take the worker off early and just get a couple of bonuses. Fine, I need it now, let's just do it. But it can be rewarding to let it leave on the track for a little bit longer, take it off, and then go, right, I attract one of these animals, get a couple of spirit, right, I get 2 free of these biomes, okay, I'm going to move this biome up, and then I get to trigger a sage bonus, okay, well, I've got a gift over there, right, I'm going to trigger that little bonus, and then the worker comes back and do stuff like that. It enables a lot of chaining, a lot of combo building. It's not so much engine building, it's just more finding the timing to trigger your workers at the best moment. And it's cool and it's very rewarding. I'm also a big fan of the Honshu style puzzle aspect. I mean, this is always fun for me to do, like with Walking in Province is one example, Honshu and Hokkaido. Fall of the Mountain King does something similar with its ancestry board. I love this little spatial puzzle, sort of going, right, well, I've got this in here, I could cover that up, and then I create this nice little grouping here, and I got this card, I rotate it, would it go there? No, there, what if I put it there? Or I could cover that, but then I'm covering this as well. This is a very satisfying little puzzle, and if you've played any of those games I mentioned, you already understand this bit like the back of your hand. So in summary, Arborea is not necessarily an original game, but it's borrowing a lot of interesting mechanics from games that have proven popular in the past and haven't been used as much. The theming, whatever. I mean, just like Bitoku, the theme is just there for aesthetic purposes. It's not exactly a dripping game. This is still fairly dry while going along with that. But borrowing removing the whole, like, timing of your workers aspect out of Zolkin and taking the kind of pointy salad nature of Batoku to an extent, but then also taking the Honshu Hokkaido style ecosystem from there. These are mechanics that you don't see in a ton of games, but they're cool, and together I think they've created what, in mechanical terms, is an interesting and fairly brain-burny Eurogame. This is definitely one for mid-weight gamers and heavy gamers, not something I recommend for light gamers at all. I think it's going to be too much for you. And there's got a lot of options there, you know, and there's going to be a lot of interaction with players in terms of moving these pilgrimage tracks, but the amount of, you know, the sort of puzzle solving and the rewarding nature of the trails and the bonuses you get is still fun, and even the game timer is variable because it depends what actions people take as to how soon before the game ends. What concerns me, however, is the size aspect combined with the graphic design. The graphic design is genuinely good, but it is a fairly busy board and it is pretty condensed, and I'm worried that by making these other pieces and various things like that smaller, you're just creating a bigger problem than, well, yeah, ironically, creating a bigger problem by making everything smaller. Let me know your comments and thoughts. Do you like the look of it? Do you think that sounded like a similar game to Batoku? Better or worse? Who knows? Some of those other aspects, like the Honshu mechanic, the Zolkin style timing mechanic, does that interest you? Let me know your thoughts about the game and whether this is one you're likely to back yourself. So if you like what you see, please thumb this up on Board Game Geek as well as on YouTube. Check out the comments down below, and of course if you want to check out more content on the Broken Meeple, then see the reviews I've done recently, including Frostpunk and Brazil Imperial, as well as Beer and Bread, my first free reviews of the 2023 era. Take care, and remember, as always, it's your money at the end of the day, so be wary of what you're backing on Kickstarter, and remember, it's still only a game. Bye for now, everyone.